nothing ever happened to you as an individual. It would happen to somebody else, but never you. And that was the general attitude that everybody had. No, I don't think you were scared. I think you were excited. There was certainly a spirit of excitement there. Well, it seemed when we were in Normandy, everywhere we went, every pilot had a couple of one or two rotor caps in his pocket, and what those rotor caps meant that if he got lost or he couldn't find a way home, he could always steal a Jeep and find his way home that way. Well, it became quite a game because after a while we had 8 or 10 Jeeps attached to our squadron of with 18 pilots, and we were always stealing Jeeps because it was the thing to do. Well, the Jeeps in those days, they didn't have a key. Instead, they would be dismantled by somebody just lifting the lid, pulling the rotor cap off, and the Jeep just wouldn't go with it, of course. Well, because we had rotor caps in our pockets, we could make them go. Now, we were in Paris, and we saw that one of the guys saw this beautiful Jeep sitting at the side of the road. He lifted the lid, the rotor cap was missing, so he put his on there and took the Jeep. We were coming out of Paris, and the first Jeep we had was RCAF Jeep, and the SPs at the gate, they raised the barrier. They didn't realize that directly behind the RCAF Jeep was an American Jeep with a huge white star on the hood. And the driver of that Jeep, he just stepped on the gas and sped through there like a bat out of hell. So we had that white star Jeep on the airport grounds for quite a while, until the motor transport officer came in one day and said, "Fellas, get rid of those Jeeps. There's going to be an inspection tomorrow, and whoever's holding one of those stolen Jeeps is going to get what for." Then he said, "I'll get rid of them for you if you like." And that was the end of the Jeeps. We wondered where he put those Jeeps. We had this Richard Monette on the squadron, and what he did, being French-speaking and beautifully French-spoken, he would go out and scrounge at various farms, and so we usually had fresh eggs and butter and anything at all. And one day he's out scrounging, and this French farmer very proudly showed him a haystack, and underneath the haystack was an Oldsmobile, a 38 Oldsmobile that had hardly been driven, and he had hidden it away from the Germans all this time. In some way, Monette took over ownership of that Oldsmobile. He confiscated it. So here we were, running around with an Oldsmobile in Normandy. Well, he decided it wasn't much fun in Normandy, so since we had leave from time to time, he put it on a landing barge that had just pulled in, and they took it back to England for him. Took it up to London, and I think we were on leave at the time, and he drove it around London like crazy, and eventually he piled it into a lamppost and smashed it all to heck. Walked away from it. So if you think the Germans or the Russians were thieves, it had nothing on this guy. Because even the Wing Commander John Johnson, and that sort of thing, would do the same thing. And there's some stories about some of the fighter pilots, the Baders and the Paddy Finnegan, and those guys who, boy, they broke every rule in the book all the time. these are the guys meeting out punishment. Come on. They didn't care. After we landed in Normandy, we found we didn't have a mess. And if you wanted to sort of have a night out, then you had to go into the local town, and which wasn't conducive to that kind of thing. Because in the mess you always had a piano, you always had a sing song. It was a lively place to be. Remember, that was your home, and so it was decided that probably by the armorers that they could take two long hangers, hang them on the wing of a spit, and make it large enough that it would carry a keg of beer. If we could fly this thing to England, pick up the beer, and fly back. Well, flew to England, picked up the beer, brought it back, and to see this darned airplane with two kegs of beer, one under each wing. And so we had a regular, trip back and forth to England, and we're the only wing with this capacity. Now the thing is that to look at this aircraft head on, you wouldn't know what the heck it was, and we were deadly afraid that our own guns, would shoot it down because it just didn't fit in any of our aircraft recognition studies. But what the heck? So, having gone through the beer barrel thing, we decided that wouldn't it be nice in the mess if we had some hard liquor? So I volunteered to cross the channel, and we cleaned out the gun panels so we would have lots of accommodation for all the liquor we could find. And then I went to the various pubs and liquor stores in one of the southern towns, and got a whole raft of this stuff, put it into gun panels, and flew back. The only thing is, I must have bought some liquor that had cork stoppers rather than the screw caps, because when I got back, I found that I must have flown too high in some places, and the corks popped, and we had, I remember the smell of gin all over the gun panels when they eventually landed and they opened them up. However, we salvaged some scotch, I remember. But that, it's the things that happen in ordinary families, sort of thing. The only thing is we had more people thinking up these ideas. And, I'm telling you, intelligence was not a very necessary requirement for being a pilot. Really. That's why you had to be a kid, to be a pilot. When they were getting prepared for the Battle of Arnhem, we were conducting a sweep, and we had belly tanks which had 90 gallons of gas, which meant that we would be out for maybe 2.5 hours, just flying back and forth, making sure that the German presence wasn't there. And for some reason, suddenly my engine quit at about 8,000 feet. The belly tank had drained. What you're supposed to do, of course, is fly with some gas still left in the belly tank, and your engine will quit. It quit. So I sort of circled around and tried to get this engine started. I switched to my main tanks. It wasn't starting at all, and we had what we call a wobble pump at the side. We would pump this thing, and just to start it. And I was down to about 300 feet over the German lines, and apparently they were shooting everything but the kitchen stove at me, and I wasn't aware of it. I was so concerned about getting that aircraft started. About 200 feet, suddenly it caught, and off I go. I got home eventually, and there wasn't a scratch on my aircraft from all of this flak that they were throwing at me. And my only complaint was, where the hell were you guys when I was down to 200 feet and trying to get that engine started? So we were going down there, Buster.